The flag bearer of the opposition National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, has called for an end to what he describes as the militarization of our elections, where armed military and security operatives are deployed to polling and collation centers. Well, he describes this as a recipe for chaos. He spoke at the 2024 peace campaign organized by the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council in collaboration with the Christian Council and the Office of the National Chief Imam at the State House here in Accra ahead of that December polls. Now, let's speak to Most Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante. Over the weekend, we heard from John Dramani Mahama committing to peace. We've heard from Napo committing to peace. So we just want to find out at this point the way forward, especially because we know that the initial position of the NDC was that they would not sign a peace pact. Let's bring in Ref at this time. He's a former chairman of the National Peace Council, Most Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante. Thank you for your time here on Newstext. Let's get a little update. I know you've been doing your digging as someone who was previously heading such an important institution like the Peace Council. Do you now have an official response committing to the peace pact from the NDC? Would they sign it this time, based on your checks?
Well, I mean, they've already signed it, haven't they? Because, I mean, yesterday, I read in the news that, you know, the representatives of the various political parties were making commitments.
Yeah, the commitment, is it the same as the signature previously? We know that they would actually sign the document, which they haven't this time. Are you saying
I have no
idea. we should take the word of mouth of the people?
No, as far as I'm concerned, whether they will sign or not is up to them. But I believe they have already made commitments to the public. I mean, integrity is at stake here. I mean, if you are vying to become leaders of our country and you stand in public to make such commitments to peace, to peaceful elections. I even heard one of them saying that I and my family will ensure that there will be peace. The vice presidential candidate, Napo, made a commitment for MPP, and NDC commitments were made. If you are vying for position to lead us, and you make such public commitments, and then you renege, you don't do what you said you would do, it's a matter of integrity. So I think these are people with integrity. I want to believe that they are men. The parties are made up of men and women with integrity. When they make commitments, they are expected to go by their commitments.
People have advanced the argument that the peace pact in itself is not a legally binding document. So what's the much ado about nothing, really?
It's not a legally binding document, but it's a moral binding document. We need to always, you know, not just talk about legalities, but morality must become very, very important for us. And I'm glad that it's the religious community that led this. You know, it is moral binding. And if you make a commitment and you renege, you don't go by that simply because it is not legally binding. Morally, what are you saying to your followers and to the teeming masses that are looking up to you?
Can you hold people accountable for their moral backgrounds?
Nobody can hold you accountable, but your conscience will have to. You have to deal with your conscience, and the public would know the type of person you are, you know. And I would want to believe that Ghanaians will not just sit back and say it's not legally binding, morally we cannot hold anybody accountable for these things. But we need to hold them accountable for making moral commitments and not going by it. So it's morally binding. And if I were in that position, I'll be very careful about, you know, my own moral status in making such public commitments and reneging on that.
John Dramani Mahama raised a salient concern about using the military at collation centers and polling stations. ahead of the poll. He feels that it's wrong. You have headed the Peace Council. Do you think we should do away with the military at this point?
I think it would be too premature for us to talk about these things. I mean, we need to look at the maturity of our democracy and of our politics in this country. The ideal thing would be that you would not have military people anywhere, because that could also scare off people. That's the ideal. But are we living in the ideal situation? I mean, situations where people get up and make all sorts of threats and all that. So it's up to the security agencies, and perhaps in taking such decisions, I would think that it should be, the other parties should be involved in the whole matter. There are certain areas where it might be necessary for you to, ensure that the military and the security services people will be on alert. Other places you might not need that. So simply saying that we don't need them now, I think will not work. There are certain places where you would need them. They don't have to go very close to the place to threaten people, but they have to be on standby afar to make sure that in case there are any problems, they can come in and restore peace to ensure peaceful election.
But with just 33 days to the December polls, how do you ensure peace in areas where we've recorded conflict, like Boku, for example, without using firm hands like the military and the police?
I have always said that when there is fire, and when I was the chairman of the National Peace Council, places where people were fighting, issues, and then people would say, have you gone there? I mean, you use the military and the police to douse the flame, and then we can talk about issues that led to the flames. That's where the peace people come in. But where people are holding cutlasses, guns, and other things, you need people who are trained to deal with that, to address those kinds of issues. So that's why I'm saying that it's not in all places where you have to put the military and the security services people around, but in certain places where in their own intel, they know that there is risk, perhaps you need to get them on standby to facilitate, to ensure that there is peaceful atmosphere. If you're going to be even talking about peace, you need a peaceful environment to be able to discuss peace. So you will always need them.
As we head to the polls, what do you feel the agencies involved, like the Electoral Commission, could do to restore trust in the Electoral Commission and also in the process altogether?
I believe that the EC, that is the Electoral Commission, should be transparent. And so far, in my view, they have been communicating to the public and to the parties in terms of what they are going to do. If they're going to introduce anything new, it will be good to get the buy-in of the various political parties, discuss with them why it is necessary for such a thing to be done. They should not do anything to create suspicion. But having said that, I must also say that if you were working with them, I will not envy them. Whatever they do, people might have some things to say about it. But they should do the best that they can to enhance transparency in the entire electoral processes. So the Electoral Commission, as the referee, have a lot of things to do, but we should also not put too much pressure on the Electoral Commission and begin to read all sorts of things into everything that they do. They should be open. They should discuss with the various political parties in terms of any new thing they want to do to facilitate peaceful election.
Thank you, Most Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante. He is the former chairman of the National Peace Council. Away from that, John Dramani Mahama has promised the future NDC government will construct a senior high school in the Nanton district. Speaking in the Tolon constituency on the last day of his tour, he promised to construct a bridge over a section of the Volta River to connect Tolon district to Daboya district. Max Agwagwa has a wrap of John Mahama's tour of the northern region.
Are you ready for Women Development Bank?
On the final day of his tour of the northern region, the NDC presidential candidate John Mahama visited the Tolon, Sagnarugu, Nanton, Tamale North, Tamale Central, and Tamale South constituencies, where he outlined several promises and initiatives aimed at addressing local needs and enhancing national policies. In the Tolon constituency, John Mahama promised that under future NDC government, a bridge will be constructed over the Volta River to connect Tolon district to the Daboya district. Additionally, he committed to decentralizing recruitment into state security agencies to ensure fairness and access across regions.
My father, Kasulana, spoke about several things, and one of the main issues that we've had on the drawing board for a long time is the bridge over the Volta River to connect Tolon district to Daboya district. And that has been on the drawing board for a long time. I thought that in the 8 years MPP was in power, they will work on it. They haven't. So it's NDC that will come and do that bridge. So that if you are in Tolon and you are going to Kumasi, you don't need to go back all the way to Tamale. You just cross over into Daboya to Busunu and then left to Damango Junction, then right to Bupe, and then you're on your way.
While in the Nanton constituency, he focused on infrastructure development, promising to establish a new senior high school if the NDC wins power. John Mahama also made commitments to the Muslim community, promising to institute a 2-day Eid holiday and expand access to Islamic schools if elected.
We're going to build a modern senior high school in this district. It is not acceptable that Nanton district, with the reputation it has, does not have a senior high school.
He further emphasized that the NDC would resist any illegal conduct during the elections to ensure fairness.
We're going to make sure that the election is transparent and fair. In the past, we have always trusted that everybody who is a stakeholder in this election will behave in a neutral and non-partisan manner. But it doesn't always work. In 2020, when we went to supervise the printing of ballot papers, after we finished printing the ballot papers, we packed them, we all signed, our agents left the printing presses. What happened? They started printing ballot papers again. And some of those ballot papers found their way into the hands of the MPP party. On the election day, we caught MPP agents with ballot papers in their hands. We reported them to the police. Nothing happened to them. So this election, we are not taking any chances. Just yesterday, one of our election supervisors went to inspect one of the printing houses, and an MPP person came there and wanted to assault him. We know that when they print the excess ballot papers, instead of shredding them in front of the agents, they keep them and hand them over to the MPP. We are not going to allow that to happen this year. Nobody is going to get hold of any extra ballot papers to go and dump them into any ballot box. This year, we are all going to be vigilant. Timnimo ya pam.
Member of Parliament Harold Ndisu expressed confidence in an NDC victory, stating that the party's agenda aligns with the needs and aspirations of the people.
What we ask of you is that we need the serial numbers of every ballot paper printed for each region, for each district, and for each constituency. This is all we are demanding in the name of transparency. Our printed ballot papers is not enough. We want to know the quantity, the serial numbers. So Northern region, we want to know where our serial number starts and where it will end, so that we can follow it to Ashanti and follow it to Eastern region. If we find a ballot paper meant for Northern region in any region, we expose your fraud and your intention for irregularity in the elections. We are very convinced, very convinced, beyond shadow of doubt, that John Dramani Mahama will win a free, fair, credible election.
Earlier, John Mahama presented a 7-seater vehicle to the Islamic Education Unit of the Ghana Education Service at a ceremony in Tamale where Abdul Karim Bapuni, the general manager of the unit, received the vehicle. Additionally, he presented another vehicle to the Zakat and Sadaqah Trust Fund of Ghana at the recent National Muslim Conference held in Accra. He stated that the donation demonstrates his commitment to supporting the Muslim community and its institutions.